All right, well, welcome to our first video lecture about how to use the new Kansas State Budget Generator tool. This is a tool I've been kind of using in the background to generate the paper budgets you've seen before, and in some regards it's also used to help generate the Excel files that I have used in the past as well. But this year I thought I'd make that tool available to you as agents to use for your own use, because there are some things that are easy to change and you can adjust things to your own individual situation or any farmers that you're working with, and I think it's not too hard to accomplish. So I think there will be some advantages to actually learning how this tool actually works. I have simplified this tool greatly in the last year or so too, so it's much easier to work with than the internal version I had before. I'm going to divide this series of lectures up about this, how to use this particular tool. I'm going to have a segment that we're going through right now about a general overview. Then I'll have one about how to make changes to an existing budget, how you might start from scratch and create a new budget, how to combine budgets, which is going to be useful when we get to the part of looking at irrigation, because really irrigation budget really consists of two parts. It consists of just the irrigation side as a separate budget, and then it consists of a crop that goes along with that. You could also use it to look at things like maybe looking at wheat and double crop soybeans as a enterprise and have a combined budget like that. And then finally, I will show you actually how you can actually print from this tool if you want to make changes to an existing budget and you want to actually print those out. So again, the very first thing I'm going to do is do the general overview. I should mention, though, that funding for this tool was provided by USDA NIFA Organic Transition Grant, number 2016-51106-25716. The NIFA folks want to make sure I acknowledge that. This tool also has the capabilities of working with organic producers and crops to develop crop budgets for that, because I have certain switches you can turn on or off to tell the program that you only want to consider organic inputs in the model. Obviously with the conventional crop budget, for most crops, farmers, if you're not using organic, you have a lot of herbicides and other chemicals that would go into that crop production mix that you can't use on the organic side. Well, with the organic switch, I can actually turn those off so you don't see them, and you focus mainly on the few products you can use, along with all the machinery stuff that goes into that. All right, let me now switch over to what the crop budgeting tool actually looks like. And after you open this and install it on your computer, you'll end up with a screen like this. Pretty much all the inputs you have to work with and the things you have to deal with are going to be on these pages right here. They're on these tabs. So there's going to be a basic tab, which will kind of show the list of budgets that are available to you to actually work with. And when you first open this, there should be all the existing crop budgets that I have generated up to this point. You'll see them in a list here that you can select from. And there is also a drop-down list here that you can pick a budget from too. So really you could do that from either spot. There is also a products page. This is the output where you select the output that's going to go into your particular budget. So basically you select the crop here, and then you select the particular item over here and the bushels and the amounts. And then we have an inputs page where you select the different inputs. We have a machinery page where you can either do custom rates, which is what you're seeing on this top part here, or now that I'm using mostly in the crop budgets, actually own machinery. So this is where that phase of things come into play. Then we have a part if there's some irrigation that goes along with that, a place where we can combine budgets together, and then we have a reports page, and eventually I will have a section of the directions part of it. So I'll kind of walk through all these tabs here really quickly, and I'll cover more of them in depth as we develop new budgets and we change existing budgets. So let me spend just a little bit more time on each of these tabs that go along with the basic budget here. So again, this is where you would put things like the title of your budget, the main title. There's also a subtitle, the budget unit, and then a budget number, and then a budget date. Kind of goes into the header information on most of the budgets. And then we have the year for the budget region, and the machinery region, which kind of helped determine when I get to the parts about machinery and inputs about where it's going to pull a specific number from. The specific crop we're talking about, a labor multiplier. Normally I leave this set at 1.2 for practically all the budgets. What the labor multiplier is really saying is that one tractor hour usually takes more than one driver hour for that to be accomplished, because you have things like stopping off to grab a bite of lunch, grease your equipment fueled up. And normally the rule of thumb is it takes 1.2 operator hours for every tractor hour that you have. And then we have the interest rate types, either the intermediate rate or the short-term rate. Typically, we use the intermediate rate for the machinery. The short-term rate is where the operating interest comes from, which would be our short-term interest rate. Who has developed the particular budget? In this case, it would be me and Dan for practically every one of these. And then we can also adjust the fuel prices. This is kind of a common thing to change in any of the budgets because that can obviously change quite a bit from, not only from year to year, but certainly month to month and even week to week quite a bit. So because that's such a common input to change, I have that capability to change this right from this page, front page right here. So if you want to see, well, I know fuel prices are going to be $2 instead of $1.75, you can do it right here, and all the budgets are automatically updated then. And over here, I just have the current list of budget regions that I currently have in here right now. All right, so if you want to select a new budget, there's at least 3 ways you can go about doing that. You can come up here to the drop-down menu, and you can select a budget here. And as you can see, I have these kind of organized loosely into crop categories. So I have all my wheat budgets first, then the corn budgets, and then grain, sorghum, soybeans, so on and so forth like that. So you can do it like that. You can also come over here to these arrows, and you can either go left or right and switch to a new budget this way as well. And then the third way is you can come over here to this list and select it from over here. Now this list is very similar to this drop-down list. The advantage, though, is you can actually sort this and filter this so that you don't have to go through I think there's about 50 or 60 budgets in here now, so you don't have to go through the whole list. So let's say you're just looking at you just want to look at the corn budget. You can go here and type corn and then click on the filter. And now you can see I'm limited to just the different corn budgets in the state here. So that's one quick way to do that. Another way you might want to use this is you can do it by region too. So let's just say I want to do North Central and then do a filter. Now I have all my North Central budgets showing up. So here's my wheat budget for North Central Kansas rotation. Here's my corn budget, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's how you handle the budgets that you want to actually look at. Now let's move over to the products tab and look at that. So the first step would be basically to pick the particular crop that you're looking at. And then once you have narrowed it down to the crop, then you actually pick the region. Again, these are already pre-filled in with the different budgets that we develop for corn across the state. And then we have a quantity, which is, again, we have a back-end database that has this information. You can change this if you want to. And here's our expected price, which is probably something you do want to experiment with, and then it calculates the amount right here. So again, we don't have to use the default amount. We can key in a new amount here for the quantity if we want to, and same thing with the price. On the input side, so here's where I made quite a bit of changes to how I did this. So basically all of the inputs are divided into categories. So you can see we have things like cash rent, crop consulting, insurance, fertilizer, fungicides, herbicides, seeds, miscellaneous, all the things that typically go into a budget. They're all prearranged into categories, which makes the choice much easier. And then once we have selected a category of input, the subcategory is kind of optional. If you look at the budgets in detail, you'll see that there's always this main category showing up, but sometimes there may be a subcategory. So if you want to group things together, like you see I did with the herbicides, I have them grouped in either burn down, pre-emergence, post-emergence. That's just one way to help refine your budget and get a little more sorting. Again, the subcategory would be kind of an optional thing to do. You don't really have to have that. It won't change your numbers at all. It will just kind of change how it sorts on the actual budget page. But again, the main thing is to pick the category of the input, and then once you do that, you will have an input that you can actually choose from that. And you can see with fertilizers, here's our list of fertilizers you'll get. And you notice here, these are all listed in tons because most farmers think of buying fertilizer probably on a per ton basis. So they will show up on a ton basis. But when you get ready to apply it to your field, typically the unit you buy something in is not really how you think about when you apply it. So there's this column right here where you can actually adjust the amount from what you buy it as in tons to pounds, which is what this little converter thing does. So to saves you having to do that conversion on your own, it will take the price per ton and actually now convert that to a price per pound to make it easy to work with on the budget then. So again, once you make this conversion here, we'll automatically convert and give you this number right here. Again, you can actually override the price right here if you don't like what we have in there for the current price of fertilizers. And then here is where you put the application rate in, how many ounces per acre or how many pounds per acre. You'll see a lot of our herbicides actually come in on a gallon basis like that. So you want to convert, and then the application rate is typically in ounces. So you want to convert that then from gallons to ounce, like you see right here. And if there's no conversion needed, maybe it's already priced in ounces, then you just hit, or it's going to default to no, and you just pick that, and it won't convert anything. So you pick the application rate, how many applications of that particular product you're going to make, which may be multiple field operations. Maybe you want to think about that way, and then it will calculate you a cost here as well. This box right here is kind of used to determine if I want to, if I change the type of fertilizer, how much of that fertilizer do I actually need. So the suggested amount is based on crop withdrawal per acre. And if you change the yield, that'll change the suggested amount of fertilizer that you would need. And then you pick a fertilizer you want to look at, and it will tell you then, how much of that additional fertilizer do I have to get to the exact suggested amount right there. Again, this is kind of an optional part right here. What is another nice thing about this is you can actually filter this and focus on the particular input that you're looking at. So let's say we want to maybe just look at herbicides. We will select that as our category filter and then hit filter. And notice here now, the first thing you should notice is there's a big red box around this to tell you that you have a filter turned on. And now you're just looking at all the herbicides. The other inputs are still there. They're just not showing up here. So when you look at some of the inputs shown, this basically now tells you the cost of what your herbicides are, and it still tells you your total amount of all the other inputs, basically by using this filter switch right here. And when you're ready to go back, you hit show all again, and it will take you back to where you were. The machinery side, there are two ways you can have inputs from a machinery entered into your budget. You can look at custom rates, which is what we have used in the budgets in the past. And basically you pick the category, and then again it will tell you the type of operation, and it will fill in the cost, so on and so forth. So that should be fairly straightforward. The own machinery operations, again, are assuming that you have your own machinery, which most farmers in Kansas do. But again, you would select the category, like applying fertilizer. So you pick fertilizer application, and then you have the type of implement within that, the size, and then they will automatically then have a matching power unit to go along with that. So as you get bigger equipment, you'll have a bigger tractor that will show up for default. And the same with the additional labor. That's already pre-filled in too. If you want to change this, you can. But when you first select a new own machinery operation, all these other things, once you get to the point of selecting the size, the tractor and the labor will fill in. And then you see all the different costs that go along with that, which I think is the big advantage of using owned equipment, because you can see what the labor cost is, what the fuel cost is, what the repair and maintenance cost is, what the fixed costs are, which is going to be depreciation and interest charge, and then what the total costs are. And then we're ready to kind of go to the reports page and print things out, and you can print these out in 3 different formats, versions of it. There's a very short version, which is this very short abstract. You click on that, and it's a half page usually on most of these budgets. Everything is just reduced to the biggest line item here, the most general line item. So we have one line item for fertilizer, one for herbicides, so on and so forth. We have basically direct expenses now and fixed expenses. To get back from this, pay close attention to this. As you take your mouse and move it to the top of the budget, when you get kind of toward the top, you'll notice here this one button shows up. It says return to the budget page. That's actually how you get back to where you were before here. So there is not really a back button. Just come up here to the top to where this button shows up. Click on that now where it says return to budget page, and now you're back to where you were before. So that was a short abstract. Here's more the middle of the road type situation, which I think was what most producers are going to kind of be interested in. So in addition to the main category, now we have the subcategories. Like for diesel fuel, you'll see, well, here's what it costs to apply fertilizer. Here's the harvesting, hauling, planting, and spraying. Here's our main N, P, and K categories for fertilizer. And then we have broken down our herbicides and these other things in those different categories. So then again, this is probably going to be a little bit more than a page. but it has the same numbers, basically bottom line numbers, as what the previous one did. And again, to get back, you take your mouse, go up to the top till you find this button, and then click to return to budget page. And then finally, we have our most detailed income and expenses, which is going to look like this. This is going to be a several page different printout. But for those of you guys who want to know all the nitty-gritty details about what particular size of equipment we used, what tractors are involved, this would have all that detail right now. So you can see, like for the harvesting, you see we have a corn header with a combine from 250 to 290 horsepower. This is an 8-row, 30-inch type corn header. See what the fuel uses for that. And again, you get the same information, but you have this extra level of detail that you didn't have in the previous budgets. And again, I will have some directions somewhere down the road added to this, but that's kind of a basic overview about really how you would use this. The next video lecture, I will talk about the second part of this.